Hey guys, it's James here from eBassGuitar, and if you're interested in learning how to play walking bass, this is the first of a three-part special, a mini course called Walking Bass for Beginners. In this lesson, I'm going to be showing you a device called the Quick Start Walking Bass Accelerator. So if that sounds like your bag, please check this lesson out all the way to the end. Hey guys, it's James here from eBassGuitar, and welcome to the first part of this three-part mini-series called Walking Bass for Beginners. Before we jump into some great content, I want to remind you that there is a completely free PDF that comes with this lesson. I really strongly encourage you to download it because it's going to make digesting some of the ideas that we cover in this three-part mini-series that much simpler. But also, I just want to let you know one more thing, that the ideas that we're covering in this course are part of a much bigger project called the Essential Walking Bass course. This is going to be a big, full-on, epic flagship course for the Bass Lab Plus. If you're not already familiar with the Bass Lab Plus, the Bass Lab Plus is my private membership community where I help you push your bass playing forward, and this is going to be one of our main courses in there. Also, the backing tracks that we use in this mini series are inside the Bass Lab Plus, so if you want to play along with the backing tracks that we use, I strongly suggest you become a member because there's loads and loads of great content in there for you too. So one of the questions I get asked a whole bunch is, why is playing walking bass so important for us bass players? I think there are two reasons for that essentially. The first is it develops your internal sense of rhythm. It is a great way of developing your time. Being able to play a strong, consistent pulse is just so super important for us bass players, and it will filter into all sorts of other areas of our musicianship too. The second reason is it gives us the harmonic knowledge, okay, the note choices to really open up the instrument. And I want to demonstrate that a little bit for you first of all. I'm going to play you two examples. The first one is me playing straightforward, traditional kind of walking bass, which is a great style. But the second example is I'm going to push this into more of a funk style, and what you'll start to appreciate is that the note choices I'm using to create all of the funky stuff come directly from the walking bass. So here is the first example of me playing a straight ahead jazz 12-bar blues, 4-bar crotchets, walking all the way through. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that was a straight 4-bar walking feel. Now we're going to put it into the funky feel that I mentioned a little bit earlier. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So hopefully you can see how the note choices that I use in the 4 in a bar jazz swing feel really strongly influence the funk feel. That for me is why this is such an important style of music, because there's just so much crossover going on and it really opens up the language of the bass, and that's why players like James Jamerson, Duck Dunn, Willie Weeks were such strong jazz influenced players. But one of the questions I got asked when I was researching this course was from one of my students. He said, what actually is walking bass? And I thought that'd be a great question to answer. For me, walking bass is that real solid 4 in a bar pulse. The reality is that walking bass probably actually started in the time of Bach, which I think is why so many jazz musicians have taken such a keen interest in his music. Jaco Pastorius even did some Bach inventions to show what a great influence he was on this style of music. But the reality is, I think it probably started in its current format back in the 1920s in the dance bands back then. It was this real heavy 4 in a bar pulse which actually made people want to dance. It was actually what filled the dance floor. The whole of the band sat on top of it. So there's kind of the dance band things, but when modern jazz and bebop came along in the 40s and 50s, jazz musicians, I think, made it a lighter kind of 4 in a bar kind of idea, but then started really taking it to the next level by adding all the complicated extensions and really harmonically taking it to the next level, because that 4 in a bar dance band kind of thing is much more related to rock and roll. So if you listen to, say, Glenn Miller in The Mood, that really was what started to sort of predate really all the Chuck Berry or the Little Richard ideas. But then that turned into modern jazz as well, and really into the players like Ray Brown, Christian McBride, Ron Carter, all those great players that we know today. So I really strongly urge you to go and listen to all of those. Listen to walking bass across the decades, because it's a really useful thing to do. But for me, if I just had to say, well, what is walking bass? It is that strong 4 in a bar pulse. But let's start talking about that 4 in a bar pulse. I'm going to jump over to the whiteboard now, and we're actually going to get you to start playing that right now. So guys, for the purpose of this lesson, we're going to be using an amazing jazz tune called Now's the Time. It's written by the great saxophonist Charlie Parker, and it is based over a jazz blues. So this is largely the same as a rock and roll blues, except down the bottom we add in a G minor, a C7, and then a turnaround of F7, D minor, G7, C to take us back round to the start. So the first thing I want to get you doing is just really thinking of those strong quarter note walking bass pulses. So everything I'm going to teach you here is literally stuff that I use in the real world when I'm out on a jazz gig or just playing walking bass. So I'm literally going to start this off by playing quarter notes all the way through. This might seem kind of slightly elementary, but it really is a great way of starting to think about the time and to internalize this fantastic blues chord sequence which is here. So all I want you to do to begin with is literally play root notes on the lowest place on the bass. So I'm going to write 4 quarter notes in each bar here. So as you can see, I've now filled out the staves with quarter notes all the way through. So let's play it and see what this sounds like. I really want you to focus on playing good strong quarter notes which really lock with the 4 notes which are going on the drummer's ride cymbal. So let's see what this sounds like. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, in my view, that is a perfectly credible walking bass line, particularly if you play it with really good time that's locking into the drummer's ride cymbal, because the drummer's ride cymbal and the click, or the tick rather, which is happening on beats 2 and 4 of the hi-hat, is really what we as bass players want to lock into. So let's push this on a stage now. I mentioned earlier this thing called the Quick Start Walking Bass Accelerator. The thing about this is I want to get you thinking about what other notes you can use, but I don't want to get you bogged down in music theory. So the next note that we can put in here is our octave, and I really suggest doing this on beat 3 of the bar. Let me grab the rubber and literally show you exactly what I mean. We want to play 2 quarter notes on beats 1 and 2, and then we want to jump up the octave to grab that, because the second sort of strongest beat in the bar after the first beat of the bar is always beat 3. So this is a good point to stick our octave in like so. And that's what it looks like. We can do the same thing again for the B flat chord, like so. And this is an idea that I will use. It's a really strong idea if you really want to sort of just emphasize the root note of the chord. I'm now going to write this out across the whole sequence. So as you can see, I've now written this out across the tune. Let me just play you a few bars so you can hear what it sounds like. So then up to the B flat. Like so. Then to the G, to the C. And this is a great way of practicing octaves, but I've deliberately changed the turnaround a little bit. Because the turnaround goes around to 2 chord changes a bar, this is a great chance to change octaves 1 per note. So we do an F, and then up to the F octave on beat 2, then to the D minor, and then catch the D octave up there, and then G minor, like so, and then C7 like that. And you may want to just practice this turnaround in isolation. Just to get really comfortable with that. So let's put this all together and actually try it with the track and see what it sounds like.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
So that was putting our first octave into place. The second thing I want you to do is just invert that pattern. The reason why I suggest doing that is one thing that I observed with so many of my students is that they're great going from low to high, so they can start off a root note and work up. But when it comes to starting off on an upper note and then coming back on yourself, they often find it it's a little bit weaker, shall we say. I think it's just because we don't do it quite so much in our early stages, but this is a great way of kind of thinking a little bit inside out. Let me demonstrate what I mean. So we're just going to start off with an F up the top here at 3rd fret there, and then down to our low F. Don't forget, all of this is completely covered in the PDF which comes with our lesson. It's tabbed out as well so you can see exactly what frets I'm using. So this is what it looks like. And then we can go up into the B flat like so. And I'll fill this in just a second, but let's just do the turn round, and we can do this back to front like so, starting on the upper octave, so going F down to the low F, high D like so, down to there, and then down to the G minor here, and then the C up there. So let me play you what this sounds like so you can internalize the sound in your head. So the first bar is, and back to the F7, then up to the B flat, then back to the F7, to the G minor, to the C7, and then hit turn around. And particularly that feels a little bit awkward to start off with, but if you practice it round and round, just the bars 11 and 12, you will start to become comfortable after a little while. So let's put this with the track so you can hear what it sounds like.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
So the last thing I want you to do as part of this lesson is to actually shift everything up from around about the first fret up until fret 8 round here, because one of the things I see all the time with my students is they tend to get stuck down here and start to, or they just work in one particular area of the neck and they get really confused when they have to start breaking out and they just want to stay in this kind of home area. So what I want to do is, whilst we're just dealing roots and octaves, is to take all of our chords and move them up here. So the F is then going to be moved to 8th fret on the A string, and the B flat is going to move to 6th fret on the E string. Don't forget, this is all in the PDF, and then back again. And then you will know that. Then the G minor is going to move to 10th fret on the A string, like that. And then the C is going to be at 8th fret on the E string. And then we can catch the turnaround by going, so 8th fret on the A string to 10th fret on the E string, to 10th fret on the G string, A string, and then lastly the C you can get at 8th fret on the E string. So let me just play you this and so you can see what it sounds like. There's a certain, I guess, lightness when you start taking it up into the upper register. By register, I mean the higher notes on the bass, and this will be a choice that you may want to use going forward. So I just want to start getting you really, really comfortable with other areas of the neck. Let's see what this sounds like with the track.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
So guys, that is the end of this first part of Walking Bass for Beginners mini course. So what we've covered here is just using root notes. We've covered using root notes and octaves. We've covered inverting those octaves, so turning them upside down. And we've looked at taking those octaves, both the one where you start with the low one and going up to the high one, but I also encourage you to do the one going from the high to the low in this area of the fingerboard. So we've covered quite a bit, but most of all, I want you to get really, really super comfortable with playing the blues sequence. Get it inside your head. We're doing something relatively simple and straightforward over the top, but it's really, really foundational because we're thinking about the time first of all, but we're also sort of internalizing this rhythm, this sequence too. And I play blues is practically on every jazz gig that I ever do. So really learning this sequence inside out is one of the most important things you can do as a bass guitar player wanting to play this walking bass style of music. So guys, that is the end of Walking Bass for Beginners, part 1 of this mini course. If you've enjoyed this lesson, please do give it a like and share on a social. Also, don't forget to download the free PDF that comes with this lesson. And of course, don't forget to check out the full full essential walking bass course, which is over in the Bass Lab Plus. If you're interested in taking this fantastic style to the next level, I've been James from eBassGuitar, and I look forward to seeing you in part 2.